Today we will be talking about Colin Kaepernick and his anthem protest. Colin Kaepernick was a starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in the National Football League, and he led the 49ers to the Super Bowl a few years ago. He ended up losing that Super Bowl, and years following that Super Bowl, his play regressed, and he ended up being benched and relegated to the second string because of injuries in his play. In the preseason and offseason of 2016, Colin Kaepernick started standing up for issues he believed in. Colin Kaepernick first started his national anthem protest by wearing socks that depicted cops as pigs to a practice. I believe that was uncalled for and rude, and though he may have not meant harm by it, he should have thought about the backlash that he was going to receive from it. What do you think, Alyssa?
I agree with your point, and also to add on to that, I think that he painted law enforcement with a very broad brush. I think this whole protest, he is sort of using a couple instances to talk about the police as a whole, which I don't think is fair to many of them, but I do agree that it was definitely rude and uncalled for. The next thing that happens is on August 14th and August 20th, Kaepernick sits during the anthem at the 49ers game, but no one notices, so it doesn't become a big issue then.
On August 26th, the protest gains attention when Colin Kaepernick sits at another game and a picture is taken by a photographer and circulated online.
The first time that this was really talked about was on August 28th. This was Kaepernick's first meeting with the media since the anthem protest had gained attention. One quote from this interview that Kaepernick said is, quote, "When there's significant change and I feel that the flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand. This stand wasn't for me. This is because I'm seeing things happen to people that don't have a voice, people that don't have a platform to talk and have their voices heard and affect change. So I'm in the position where I can do that, and I'm going to do that for people that can't." What do you think about that, Matt?
I think it was a good explanation of why he was protesting the national anthem. I agree that he should be standing up for things he believes in, and I just don't know if it was at the right time or the right way to do that. So on August 30th, 2 days later, Kaepernick wears a Malcolm X and Fidel Castro shirt to a press conference, kind of depicting them as leaders we should look up to. I don't believe he realized what people would think about this. He obviously is a lot younger than the people in the generation of Malcolm X and Fidel Castro, and I'm not sure he realized the history behind their belief system and what they did as leaders. I know Malcolm X was a very violent leader, and Fidel Castro was obviously a dictator, and though he may have meant well by this, it was not a good choice at the time to do this. What do you think, Alyssa?
I agree with those points, and I think that he was trying to find leaders that stood up to the different injustices that they saw. And I understand Malcolm X. I just don't really understand Fidel Castro, really, because he really was a dictator, and that's what he's known for. So I just don't know what he's trying to portray by wearing a Fidel Castro shirt. But the next instance that was recorded was on September 1st, where his teammate Reed joins the protest, and also Jeremy Lane of the Seattle Seahawks joins in on the protest. Lane was quoted saying, "I wasn't trying to say anything, just standing behind Kaepernick." He added that he would keep doing this until he felt that justice was served. So obviously, this protest is starting to take hold and spread, and we'll talk about that a little bit more.
On September 4th, Megan Rapinoe of the U.S. women's soccer team, a midfielder on their team, chooses to kneel during the national anthem before her National Women's Soccer League game. Her quote, she was quoted saying she knows what it means to look at the flag and not have it protect all of your liberties, and that it's important to have white people stand in support of people of color on this. I think this is interesting because she is a gay American, and she acknowledged that, saying that she doesn't feel like she's protected at all times, and she can kind of relate to the black minorities and the race problems that they are having. She also said it's important to have white people stand in support of people of color on this. I think it makes the protest more important and more relatable if there's white people who stand in support of this, because if it was only black people standing, I don't think it would relate to all races as much. What do you think, Alyssa?
I agree with all that, but I think it also just goes to show how much the movement has spread in this amount of time, and how people have started building up on that. Like, now it's not just about the rights and liberties of African American individuals. It spread to the LGBTQ community. So I think it just goes to show how much it has spread in this time. Not only did this movement spread to different groups of people, but it also spread from the NFL level to the collegiate level, where players started to kneel as well, but also to the high school levels, where high school bands and high school football teams, whole high school football teams with their coaches kneeled. And there was even one reported instance of a whole high school football team laying down with their arms up. So it didn't just spread between different groups of people, but it also spread through the different levels, high school, collegiate, even collegiate bands were doing this. So there was definitely a spread in the movement. Do you think that this should have happened, Matt, or do you think that it should have stayed within the bounds of the NFL?
I think it should have happened, and Kaepernick meant it to happen, because his whole point of this protest was
Alyssa,
to raise
what do you think
awareness,
about this?
and in doing that,
I
and
agree with you.
having the protest,
I do think that
he is raising a
Kaepernick
lot of
meant
awareness
it
for the
to
issue.
spread, and
Whether you
meant it to
agree
basically
with how
catch
he's doing it
fire
or
and
not,
make a
he is
difference. That's why he started
raising
the
a lot of
movement.
awareness in all
I think it just
platforms
surprises
and in
me how
all
it spread to like
parts
high school teams, and
of America.
I think it also just surprised me how an entire high school team sat down. I think I know for me, in my high schools, I can never get anyone to agree on anything. So it's just surprising that we got an entire high school team to do this.
And though people say that speak out against the protest may say that it has created division and problems within teams, this may be an example of it creating a sort of unity within teams, and it's just another side to the issue.
So now we're going to start talking about the values that are in this issue. So this protest started with the main values of patriotism and freedom. Kaepernick sitting during the anthem brought out anger in people because of how he went about this protest. Some reasons behind their anger could be many things, but one, they could have been angry because they have family in the military, and it hits home to them that a sports figure is choosing to use a symbol of national unity and respect as a way to protest something that is loosely related to the military, and they see it as an act that's defacing the patriotism of this country. So what do you think about that, Matt?
I agree with all that. I think it just hits home to people with relatives in the military, friends in the military, because they kind of connect to that and just understand the better level with them.
Yeah, and I also think that it did outweigh the value of like freedom of speech and freedom of like Kaepernick's freedom to exercise his protest because of the empathy that was connected with the military and how many people are invested in that, and I guess like what the military and law enforcement do for us, and how I think just how he chose to go about the protest could have been better, but it also in a way is making his point more talked about. So in a way, it kind of is working.
Yeah, I agree with all that. But there's also a counter argument that Kaepernick is exercising his freedom that our military fights for. So he's not disrespecting the military because the military is fighting for the freedom of his speech and that's a freedom guaranteed to us as Americans. So there's two sides to it.
My opinion is that, like, the reason that people who have family in the military get angry over the Kaepernick protest is because they can't really connect to that issue. If a person has nobody in the military, yet lived in a big city and knew people who had been treated right by law enforcement, they'd obviously be more connected to the reason behind Kaepernick's protest and ignore the possible disrespect of the military. So if people aren't necessarily like connected to Kaepernick's issue, like if they're not an African American individual or anyone who feels that their rights are oppressed, they're really not like, it's not really going to take hold on them unless they have some kind of personal experience, I feel. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think there's also a big issue with the discussion of race in this national anthem protest. And for example, a poll done by the site YouGov revealed 72% of blacks approved of the protest, while only 23% of whites approved. This might not always be true, but generally black people can relate to Kaepernick better than white people. That's because blacks experience the issues Kaepernick is protesting about firsthand, while whites experience it secondhand. Do you agree with that, Alyssa?
Yeah, I think that's basically what I was talking about before with how skewed it is with race, and people have to find something to connect to in order to find it valid, I believe. So another value that's in play with this issue is standing up for what you believe in. It seems that Kaepernick believes he is not only standing up for what he believes in, but also standing up for people who don't have a voice. The people in the slums of big cities. The average medium-wage American who may experience police brutality and racism. He even said in earlier quotes that he's not doing this for himself. He's doing it for the people who don't have as big of a platform as he does to speak out. So what do you think about that?
I think it's hard to know why he's doing it. He's saying the right things. He's saying that he's not doing it for himself, doing it for other people. I think it's good that he's a figurehead for this issue, and he's standing up for people who don't have that voice. But I don't know what his actual intention is. Moving on to another issue, a question that has come up during sports talk shows and radio shows has been how much this protest affects the 49ers team unity. Does it divide the team or unite the team, for example? Do you have thoughts on that, Alyssa?
I think obviously there's going to be an element of division in that because people are going to have different values and people have been raised differently on the team. It's such a big group of people in one team that not everyone is going to agree with Kaepernick. So I think that it is going to divide the team in a way, but I don't think that it should really have any impact on the football aspect of their team. Like, they're here to play a game, so I don't really think it should affect any of that, but I will say that there are probably people on his team who disagree with him and may lose respect for him, but I really don't think that it would be such a huge issue. What do you think?
I agree with that. I almost think it's sort of selfish for players to hold their own opinions above the team unity and just coming together as a football team. I just don't think it should affect team unity. I think voicing opinions and respecting everyone else's opinions is important, even though they might not coincide with your own. there'll always be differences of opinions, but they should just look past those individual opinions and unite under the fact that they are on the same team with a common goal to win a football game. On the surface, it seems like the 49ers are doing just that. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And again, I really don't think that it should affect the football aspect of anything. But still, I think people are just going to have different points of view that could sometimes conflict. But I don't know. Do you think that there have been many positive responses to the national anthem protests? We hear a lot about the negative side, but what do you think about the positive side? One example of this is President Obama saying this about Kaepernick during a press conference. Quote, "I think he cares about some real legitimate issues that need to be talked about. My understanding, at least, is he's exercising his constitutional right to make a statement. I think there's a long history of sports figures doing so." End quote. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think he's talking about issues that are a problem in this country, even though he may not be doing it the right way. At least he's bringing them up. And then President Obama touched on the history of sports figures raising awareness for issues. I know Muhammad Ali raised awareness, was a very popular figure in the sports world for raising awareness when he was boxing. And I think using that platform has been a common way to get things across to people. And finally, one last topic that I would like to bring up is Kaepernick saying that he will stand for the national anthem when, quote, "there is a significant change and the flag represents what it's supposed to represent." Do you think he's valuing change and progress over respect in this instance, Alyssa?
I feel that he's definitely valuing change and progress. I mean, that's what he said in his quote. I personally think that it's disrespectful to not stand for the national anthem. It's something that's been put in place for a very long time, and so I personally don't agree with that. But I think he is valuing change and progress over respect. But I can definitely see his side of it and see how he's making this issue a big deal. And I think he knew what he was doing when he didn't stand for the national anthem. I think that he would have that. I think he knew that it would have backlash, and that's what he wanted, so that it gained more popularity. What would you think?
I agree with that to an extent. I think also I don't agree with how he's going about it. But I think he, as mentioned earlier in our podcast, I don't think he fully understands that he may be disrespecting people and why he's disrespecting people. Because he just may not connect to them as easily because he might not have friends or family in the military, and he might not understand it fully. And then our final thoughts on the national anthem would be that personally I understand it. It seems that Kaepernick is genuine in what he's doing. It means no disrespect to the military or the police officers. I think protesting during the national anthem got his message out in one of the most effective ways possible. At the same time, I think he's walking a fine line by protesting these issues during a symbol of our national unity and respect towards our military. Though I might not fully agree with the way he is going about his protest, I applaud his courage in standing up for what he believes in. Your final thoughts, Alyssa?
I would agree with most of that. I would agree that I understand his support for this movement. I understand what he's trying to do. I just think that it was possibly done in the wrong way. Like you said, he's kind of attacking a national symbol, which is something that you can't really get away with. But also I think that it's kind of an issue that's evolved over time. This started as an issue about police brutality, and now with the national anthem, I think it's moved to Colin Kaepernick hates the military. So I think definitely just the evolution of the issue has been kind of interesting for me to watch, because he really didn't start it as some kind of snub towards the military. He started it to raise awareness about an issue that he thought was important. So I think also taking that into account is very important when looking at this issue. But I do agree that attacking a national symbol probably isn't the best way to go about this. But Yep. Thanks for listening to this, and we'll hope that you look more into this issue and think some things out for yourself.